Like my first trimester was no good at all. It was probably, I don't want to say it was like the worst ever, but it was just not a good, it was not a good ride.
So my husband and I recently announced that we're expecting a baby via Instagram and then later through Facebook. So I thought what better time to do a first trimester recap video to kind of give you guys some insight on my personal experience and things that you may or may not experience in your pregnancy. As a disclaimer, I am not a doctor nor a medical professional. This is just my experience. Everything that you experience or are concerned about, you should consult with your personal doctor, not just research or Google everything. I've talked about it with my doctor and she's okayed it. So I just kept having this weird taste in my mouth. So that's one of the symptoms that they do mention. It's like a metallic taste in your mouth. And it got to the point that I didn't even realize that it was that, but I ended up buying a tongue scraper just because the taste in my mouth was so gross. I was brushing my teeth at work 3 times a day. And that was kind of like the first sign that I didn't link to being pregnant, but was. I was super duper 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 fatigued and tired. These were days where I would just come home and knock out. Like I was just going straight to bed. I just didn't feel good. I just wanted to sleep. I prefer to sleep than eat anything. So on top of the fact that I was losing my appetite, I was really tired and there was just a lack of balance going on there. So I just thought, okay, that's one of the other signs, but I still didn't think anything of it. I started not wanting certain foods, and that's when I'm like, okay, maybe I'm just gonna take a test. And I took it not thinking that I was actually pregnant, just because I hadn't missed my period yet, and they tell you wait like a week after your missed period. And it had already been a month. Since my cycles are so long, a month isn't usually where I'm like, oh, I've missed a period. I usually go 5 to 6 weeks sometimes, depending on what time of the year it is. I wasn't worried for missing my period or anything like that. So it was mostly the symptoms that kind of an indicator of something's wrong, and if I'm not pregnant then something's wrong and I should go to the doctors. So it turns out I was pregnant. I took 2 tests. They both came out positive like super fast, which meant that my HCG levels were high enough to produce those positive results. And as soon as that happened, I told my husband. I couldn't wait. I wanted to tell him, so I told him. And at 6 weeks I got a yeast infection. It started to get like really itchy. I didn't know what to do, and that has happened to me in the past because I do suffer from like stomach problems. I have acid reflux and I have GERD. So those were 2 things that I'm like, okay, that might be triggering the yeast infection. This is one of my personal experiences. Doesn't mean it's gonna happen to you, but it's one of the things that did happen to me. It sucked. It was very scary, but in the end it was okay. This is kind of like what led to my first ultrasound, which they don't typically do until around 10 weeks. But because I was really worried and concerned that because of the yeast infection and the treatment I was spotting, they brought me in, did an ultrasound, and the baby was fine. So that was my main concern. Like I didn't want that treatment that I had to do to treat the yeast infection to hurt the baby. So when you're typically told to take a diflucan to treat a yeast infection, you're not supposed to do so when you're pregnant. So they told me take Monistat 3. And when you do Monistat 3, you're supposed to use the cream one, the insert. So obviously it treats it and then it just kind of, the excess comes out. So when the excess was coming out, it was spotting. They say it could also be like the remains of what would have been your period. So I was spotting, it was pinkish, and that concerned me. This is my first pregnancy. I didn't know what to expect, and at that point I hadn't discussed being pregnant with anyone else but my husband. So it was very worrisome for me, and luckily I was able to go in and get all of that straightened out. Yeah, the baby was good. That really made me feel a lot better. So never hesitate to say like I need to make sure that things are fine, because the main priority is to make sure that the mom's fine so that you can take care of the growing life inside you. So yeah, that happened to me at 6 weeks, and luckily has not happened since. I've been taking probiotics I make sure to take them every single day just to avoid getting a yeast infection, because those are very uncomfortable, and then treating it is like this whole process. And I did read that yeast infections are common in pregnancy just because of your different hormone levels. I started to take prenatals. Like most women that find out they're pregnant, they want to take prenatals before they start trying to have babies or right after. And because we weren't actively trying, I didn't take any prenatals before. I started after. So I bought one of the best ones in the market, and it contains iron because they say your body, you know, you should have iron and all the DHA and all that stuff. But those made me feel like hell. They made me feel sick, and I just couldn't take them. Somebody said that it's better to take them at night after you've had food. So kind of just like sleep it out, but that still, it made me feel really bad in the morning. So I just stopped taking them and started taking another one. I can make a video on the recommended pregnancy or first trimester items that I think have worked for me. Maybe it will work for you too. So moving on to what I ate and what I didn't eat. I didn't eat much. I actually lost weight in my first trimester, not because I was throwing up all the time, but because I wasn't eating actual meals. I was just eating small things to not make me feel nauseous throughout the day. So things that I ate: mashed potatoes, waffles, strawberries, toast with jelly or butter, English muffins, rice, and I drank probiotic yogurt. And I needed to have something in the morning, like right before I got out of bed. Otherwise, I just was not feeling good at all. Oh, I would also drink a lot of oatmeal water. And my lovely husband would make sure he would deliver these things to me in the morning. So he'd bring me a toast with oatmeal water or a waffle with oatmeal water. And that kind of got my day started. So yeah, I was eating those things, and I had to eat it every 1 to 2 hours. If I didn't eat for more than that, I would just feel terrible. I would just start going downhill from there. I wanted to curl up into a ball because of how poorly I felt. I started working from home at around 8 or 9 weeks because I was suffering from motion sickness. So my commute is pretty long, and it was still winter at the time, so it was snowing. Oh, that was one of the concerns that I talked to my doctor about. Like, just driving made me so nervous because of how bad I was feeling. Like, I was driving and shaking at the same time. I was fortunate enough to be in a position that I can work remotely. If you're ever concerned, make sure you talk to your doctor about it. And I know some women are concerned about telling their work that they're pregnant, and it is something you need to speak to HR, and you are not required by law to say that you're pregnant, but that is something to look into depending on the state or country that you work in. I made sure to look at what protected me, because I knew that my pregnancy wasn't something that I wanted the rest of my coworkers to know unless I told them. So just make sure what coverage is available in your state or your country to protect you as a pregnant woman. I want to say that the roughest part of the first trimester was from week 5 to week 9 or 10, because those weeks were the hardest to get food in me, and without food I felt sick. So it was kind of like a you lose anyway, because you're not feeling well enough to eat or don't want any of that, but if you don't eat, you're gonna feel terrible. So you pick your battle, right? I was avoiding all type of chunky food because I found that that food would not digest properly, and if it didn't digest properly, it means it came back up, and the chunky food was no good going up the throat, so I avoided it at all costs. Thanks again for watching. If you found this video helpful, give this video a thumbs up and leave some comments in the comment section below. Tell me about your experiences, or if you've shared similar experiences to mine and what you've used to remediate those. If you're a new friend to my channel, please be sure to subscribe, and if you want to keep getting video notifications, make sure to ring the notification bell up there. Bye.